Honourable Members of the General Assembly. Today, I am here to discuss the growing matter of water security in the Middle East and North Africa, and hopefully convince you to commit further resources towards states in these regions in the future. Today, water is rapidly becoming a source of insecurity, inequality, and conflict across and within borders. This is no longer just an environmental issue, but a crisis of human security, with estimations showing by 2050 every single country in the Middle East and North Africa will be living under extremely high water stress. Members, the Middle East and North Africa is warming much faster than the global average, and by the end of the century, many of its countries are projected to heat up by 5 degrees Celsius. If global temperatures rise by just 4 degrees Celsius, the region could lose as much as 75% of its freshwater resources. In 2023, Iran's Persian Gulf airport recorded temperatures of 66 degrees Celsius. Such intense heat disrupts snow melt and precipitation in the mountain headwaters that feed major rivers like the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, and Jordan, causing river flows to plummet. The climate is not only reducing their water supplies, but deepening human insecurity. Aquifers are being depleted faster than they can be replenished, while evaporation continues to rise. At this current rate, the red areas in the model shown here show that by 2070, much of the Middle East and North Africa will be inhospitable, forcing people to abandon their homes and seek refuge elsewhere, placing added pressure on already fragile urban centers. This crisis dates back to the second half of the 20th century, where the region experienced rapid population growth, expanding from 100 million in 1950 to 380 million people by 2000. Governments across the region pursued food self-sufficiency, building dams, expanding their agricultural land, increasing their irrigation levels, as seen in this graph. These projects brought short-term gains, but came with long-term costs, such as falling water tables, evaporating reservoirs, and increasing transboundary tensions. Today, the region is experiencing the severe consequences of these previous decades of mismanagement, exacerbated by the climate. In Syria, parts of the Euphrates River have reached dead pool levels, while Jordan receives far less water from Syria's Unity Dam due to upstream construction by Turkey. Pollution from agricultural runoff and untreated wastewater are further contaminated, limiting supplies, leaving water in Gaza brackish and aquifers in Syria and Iraq undrinkable. In response, local authorities have been forced to ration water and cut agricultural support. In 2022, Iraq reduced irrigation by 50%, and farmers in northeast Syria were restricted to planting just 25% of their land. As people's rural livelihoods collapse around them, they are forced to migrate to overcrowded cities where unemployment and poor infrastructure fuel growing social and political instability. With water sources diminishing, tensions between states such as Turkey, Syria, and Iraq over the use of Tigris-Euphrates system grow. The river, seen here, originates in the mountains of eastern Turkey and flows through Syria and Iraq, providing vital water supplies to millions. However, in recent decades, Turkey has undergone large-scale dam construction along the river, currently having built 13 of its 22 planned dams under the Southeastern Anatolia project. With the dams throughout Iran and Turkey, Iraq faces crippling water scarcity and desertification. Since 1975, Iraq's access to water from these two rivers has depleted by as much as 80%. A report by the United Nations Development Programme stated that the drought from 2006 to 2011 was the worst long-term drought and most severe set of crop failures since agricultural civilizations began. This drought in Iraq led to over 1.5 million people migrating from rural farming areas to the peripheries of urban centers, creating a cycle of poverty, unemployment, and discontent, ultimately exploited by extremist groups to recruit and radicalize vulnerable citizens. Without legal agreements and intervention in these states, the continuing water depletion in the Tigris-Euphrates system will further escalate competition, fueling regional instability, displacement, and the risk of cross-border conflict. Further securitization of the climate crisis is required, as it is a matter of urgency impacting individuals and states across the world. In the decades since the Paris Agreement, global emissions have increased by nearly 3 gigatons, with global temperatures already exceeding the Paris goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius. from pre-industrial times. From a more narrow approach, UN assistance on water management projects in countries like Iraq and Syria, who, as shown, are some of the least adapted countries to the impacts of climate change in the Middle East. The Water Innovation Technologies Project in Jordan has implemented drip irrigation systems in order to lessen the agricultural demand of water on farms. Unlike other forms of irrigation, like sprinklers, that are only 65 to 75% efficient, drip irrigation is up to 90% efficient at supplying water to plants, as well as reducing runoff and evaporation. These systems are low-tech and are implemented at a relatively low cost, proving to be an efficient strategy to increase water management. However, with water being free for farmers in Jordan, there is little incentive for them to maintain these systems, particularly with the lack of government regulation. This is the area where the UN need to intervene in. Better management systems and water regulation would hold farmers accountable, drastically improving the Middle East water crisis. Furthermore, water regulation in these countries would improve transboundary relations and decrease the potential risks of interstate conflict. If water efficiency in Turkey improved, it would allow them to increase the amount of water flow in their dams on the Tigris-Euphrates rivers, significantly improving the water availability of its downstream neighbors. Previously, positive relationships through economic ties between Iraq and Turkey pushed Ankara to release more water downstream, so ultimately ensuring that a positive relationship is maintained is essential to maintaining peace in the Middle East. Honourable members, the water crisis in the Middle East and North Africa is not just an environmental concern, it is a threat to human rights, regional stability and global peace. Climate change, weak governance and rising demand have pushed the region to a tipping point, but with coordinated UN support, better water regulation and strengthened international cooperation, we can turn water from a source of conflict into a tool for peace. This crisis is urgent and the time to act is now. Thank you.